Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is Wednesday, August 6th, 2025. And with me today, Jim Lundy, is Ken Delaney, Betsy Burton, Adam Pease. And we're ready to dive into our Aragon Live weekly podcast, which we record and make available on YouTube. So we're going to dive right into it. And the first story is Microsoft making its biggest expenditure. So, trying to get some news out there on spending after a record quarter and record layoffs. So I would just say that I'd say some trying to manipulate the news away from some of the negative things. Team, you want to comment on the news?
OpEx transferring to CapEx. OpEx being the salaries. Now they're spending it on CapEx. Probably the right move.
Yeah, and look, they made like I said, they made big commitments over this year. So I don't want to say that it's kind of recycling, but they did make some big commitments. They backed off a little bit. Now they're doubling down because they did have a record quarter, record profits. And so one of the things that's happening in tech, team, is that the hyperscalers are running away with AI profits right now. And so is there going to be stuff left for the small people? That's a big discussion. But let's keep going. But so again, record quarter, capital expenditure, they kind of need to keep updating because, the race in AI, if you don't keep updating your investments, you fall behind. So
the amount of money being put into power generation and data centers is just beyond belief. And you got to believe at some point there's going to be an overbuild, like there was, in the early days of, high-speed networking. They put too much fiber in the ground and they had all this excess fiber. We're going to have the same thing occur here, but for now, everybody's spending money.
Yeah, but again, they have been making announcements. So I would just say that they threaded through this in the news cycle because there are a lot of people taking shots that they didn't have to lay off all those Activision people because they laid off 9,000 people. All right. And by the way, we don't have this as a headline, but we had a big discussion about the price falling of our old employers for some of us, Gartner, but they probably should have done some layoffs to keep their stock price up. But we'll talk about that another time. Let's talk about Betsy. You want to lead off and talk about some of the new innovations?
Yeah, there was a number of announcements just yesterday from Google having to do with new agents for data professionals. So I thought this was an interesting one that they're putting so much into this, especially considering that they just announced, a large relationship with Oracle. But basically what they announced was something called Gemini Data Agents, APIs that allow developers to integrate new agents into Gemini's sort of environment framework there. They've also added some data engineering agents as well. Some agents to help with data science to help actually automate some of that work. And then they've also added something which is a conversational analytics agent. So you can go ahead and interact with this agent and ask questions about a set of data. So it's going to make doing analytics significantly easier. These are just coming out. I haven't gotten a lot of reviews on them and that sort of thing, but it's interesting that they're putting this much effort into the database world in this environment.
Betsy and Jim, I always find it interesting whenever we talk about Google Cloud. They have so many things, so many features, et cetera. But yet, compared to what Microsoft does in terms of business, AWS, Oracle, others, they just don't seem to be at the top of the chart like you would expect them to be with the capabilities that they have. Any thoughts on why that? Is it a marketing problem? Is it
I don't see it as a problem. I see it as more Google comes out with a whole bunch of different technologies. It's almost like, put them out to the marketplace and have people almost use them from a ground up. So I don't see this as a negative for them. I don't know. What do you see, Jim?
I don't see. I see. All I see is innovation. So
yeah.
I would say that they've been really throwing down. I think that Google's going to be ready to respond to the OpenAI 5.0 for ChatGPT, and I think they're just waiting. But they have announced some new things. The Opal, which is a free model for building agents. They're still on their corporate thing with Vertex. Their agent space is a little late. It's in early test mode, but they released Opal, which is free for building agents. So they're not slowing down on the open source side of things. They just updated Notebook LM, and the explainer videos it creates are shockingly good, right? Shockingly good. They made an explainer for Aragon way better than what I could have done.
Yeah.
But
I don't see them as that far behind, Ken. They just announced, in fact, yesterday, a partnership with Wells Fargo, where Wells Fargo is going to be deploying AI agents business-wide in something called Agent Space. So they're getting attracted by as much of the corporate customers as anyone, as others, I think. There is one thing that I will pass off to you, just since we're talking about Google. Google Cloud India yesterday held the Guinness Book of World Records biggest hackathon of 2,000 people hacking on AI agents. So that was sort of an entertaining one as well.
I think the biggest customer for Google Cloud is Google itself, and I think they'll use a lot of it.
So the biggest customer of Microsoft is Microsoft.
Yeah, right.
The biggest
Probably
customer
the biggest
Amazon.
customer of Oracle is.
I mean, come on. By the way, Genie 3, we don't have it here in the headline, but Genie 3 is something that Google DeepMind released, which is kind of like a simulator for video environments. And I will just tell you that I'm kind of looking at so they had Genie 2. Genie 3 is in preview, but these things are like more immersive than the Call of Duty video games, right? So this is going to be something, I think, for tourism, for game development, for simulation-based training. I think they've kind of doubled down on the visual aspect with computer vision. So, I mean, there's no one even close to them on this stuff. And by the way, when you create a slide or a scene in Google Vids, you can tell it, I want an image or a video, and it creates it's only 8 seconds. But I created a scene of like a living room just to test it out. And I said I wanted a living room with a couch and 2 chairs and a bedroom with the bunk beds. And guess what? That's exactly what it made. I mean,
well, I turned one of my research notes into a video. I sent you guys a copy of that, and it was pretty interesting video.
Yeah, they're calling it world models. So I think the big thing is we're going to see some vast improvements in whether you call it AI search or just call it AI assistance, the consumer-facing ones from ChatGPT. Everybody's going to have to do it, which means Microsoft will have to do it and Google Gemini. So let's see what happens. Now, Adam, you're going to talk about the OpenAI pivot.
Yeah, so OpenAI has released some open source models this week, which I think a lot of people didn't think was going to happen because they've been, despite the name, they've been releasing just private proprietary models on the cloud for a long time. So they got 2 of these. They're a GPT OSS series. There's a smaller one and a bigger one. I think the bigger one's around 120 billion parameters, which is small enough to fit on like one H100 card. So maybe some businesses will make use of this, on their own private networks. Definitely, I think some solo developers are going to try and build with it. I do think, though, the response has not been so great to these. People are pointing out that they're heavily regulated in terms of their safety, to the point where even if you ask it hi, it has to do a little thinking for a moment about whether it's safe to respond. So, there's definitely some very restrictive guardrails on it, I think, because OpenAI is just concerned about getting bad press from releasing something with a potential, something they don't want to say. And then in terms of its overall utility, I think that some people have been impressed that it is apparently performing as well as some of their reasoning models on some tasks, at least according to benchmarks. But as with a lot of these models, the benchmarks don't tell you the whole story, and the sort of word on the street is from most of the developers who have been using it that despite the benchmark scores, it really does hallucinate a lot. and it does not seem, remotely as competent as some of their reasoning models. And I think more importantly, as some of these other recently released open source models, like the Quen series of models. So I think people are looking at it a little more as a kind of PR move by OpenAI to step into the open source arena and, get at least some sort of traction there. But overall, it's definitely not winning any awards as far as the open source models that are on the market are concerned right now. And they do say that GPT-5 is coming later this week or sometime soon. So hopefully we will see that, and maybe that will be a real different story from them. But I think next we got this Genesys news from you, Jim.
Yeah, so Salesforce and ServiceNow are putting up $1.5 billion into Genesys, but it's not what you think. It appears that they're going to be using that money so they can allow some of the stock that other investors own to be sold. So it's like a stock repurchase. And I think what they're trying to do is get away from some of the private equity owners that are maybe, maybe they're hindering the stuff that Tony Bates, the CEO of Genesys, wants to do. I think Tony's done a nice job, but he was kind of forced to go away from on-premise to only public cloud, and most of their customers were on-premise. So they kind of were forced to do that. And so I think this is a good move. I think it is a signal that Salesforce and ServiceNow are looking at contact center because of demand for agents and the fact that there's a lot of money it's being spent on human labor that could be spent on software agents, right? Almost $200 billion a year is spent on humans in contact centers. So, but when I first saw the headline, I thought it was going to be, hey, Genesys is getting an infusion of cash, but it's really to change owners. So it's like buying and selling, software companies as assets. You basically have private equity firms basically saying, yeah, if you want out, you're gonna have to pay me. Jump right ahead, Cohere, which is a Canadian company. It's good to see a Canadian company doing stuff in agent land. So they announced a new agent platform for AI agent building. And I think, like I said, that everybody has to have an agent platform. As you know, at Aragon, we do cover AI agent platforms. We do cover agentic agents. We just are today announcing our hot vendors in AI agents, and we'll be also doing hot vendors in agentic agents, meaning agents that can work together with humans and systems and people. So anyway, so like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of news as we march into the fall around new offerings, et cetera. In fact, the next one is NVIDIA. Ken, turn over to you.
Yeah, so as we've been saying in our research, where the real value of AI comes is when we can put it into, process control, et cetera, through agents. And the companies who build all these products are trying to develop platforms that enable people to quickly put these agents together. So what NVIDIA has done is they put together this Langflow product, which is a no-code system that integrates a lot of pieces of what you need to do to put an agent together. So you can basically put a workflow together locally on an NVIDIA RTX GPU platform. And, there is more need for localization of workflows, not to have to go to the cloud all the time, because the cloud can be unavailable. Who knows what can happen to it? So local agents are, much more persistent and really where a lot of people want to go. So this product is based on NVIDIA's efforts to try to create platforms, which of course people commit to, lock them into NVIDIA technology. And by the way, just as an aside here, Qualcomm also announced some ability to put local AI agents on their new Snapdragon platforms as well. There's a lot of move by the chip manufacturers to build the platforms that permit local agents to be developed rapidly and to persist locally without connection to the cloud. Although the cloud would be part of it, but to be able to be locally capable. Jim, back over to you.
So this is a story that was actually released by Google about a hack of their customer information that's actually in their Salesforce instance. And what we've learned is this hacker firm called Shiny Hunters has been hacking Salesforce and taking data from different entities. And not going to get into all the names, but this is an issue for Salesforce, and they're going to have to address this. But it's interesting that it was Google that identified who was doing it. So Salesforce, like I said, hasn't been really saying that much. I will say that since we use Salesforce, the authentication of users is very good. There's no you can't. It's basically you got to use an authenticator app. But my take is they got in through the basically assigning, their app exchange partner program is usually the way that hackers get in. And so they basically infiltrate like an app exchange provider, but basically pretending to be one of those people, and they steal the credentials. So if you steal the credentials of somebody, you're going to get in. Right?
Did shiny hunters actually do anything while they were in there hacking Salesforce, or just trying to prove that they could hack them?
The speculations of shiny hunter is going to sell the information. They're going to put up a thing and sell the information on the dark web. So, I mean, which is kind of a common thing, right? And I don't think that they might have gotten the account information. They might not have gotten the revenue stuff, but I mean, so that they, because there's not a lot of other information in Salesforce. There's no proprietary data. It's generally just like information about, who your customers are or prospects are.
Right.
So I think is, it may be a kind of a nothing book, but they're going to try to extort people. I don't think they took anything down. But bottom line is shiny hunters is targeting Salesforce. Salesforce is under siege. By the way, it's one of the first times I think we've seen this, and we're gonna, I'm probably gonna write a blog about that. Let's move on to some more fun news. So YouTube is on a race, and they've done very well with the YouTube Shorts to try to counter the success of Instagram and TikTok. And by the way, TikTok has used some amazing technology. They use a lot of really interesting stuff to do their live broadcast. So a lot of people get credits if they do that. So they're going to allow people to kind of collab together and share videos, which is something that a lot of people do. Is they basically share a video, so they replay a video, and then you're on the video, right? So the video is playing, and you're laughing or making comments about it. And that's a very, very popular feature on TikTok. And Instagram has kind of copied that. I don't see as much of that on Instagram, but on TikTok, it's crazy.
Wow.
It's crazy. There's a former TV reality star all pissed off about his home that burned down, and he's going after government officials. And by the way, people retweeting, it's kind of like a retweet, but it's a video retweet. So that's what Google's going to do. I mean, YouTube's going to do is basically allow you to kind of repost somebody's post and be sitting there saying, "Oh, ha ha," ha ha. But it's very popular to basically amplify a story, and people go crazy watching that stuff. So I think it's a great feature. I think you'll see a lot more of that.
Wow, that's interesting.
There's a video analogy of the like. The heart and the like capability. Now it becomes a video. Yeah,
that's a good way to say it. So yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
Anyway, so I would just say that the story continues of WhatsApp and Meta on antitrust. It's been going on for a while. The trial actually started in April. So it's, they're trying to basically say, you might have to divest both Instagram and WhatsApp. It's not just WhatsApp.
wow.
So the battle's going on, and we'll see. So I would just say that I think that Instagram is pretty much Facebook, right? It's just a different user interface. I'd say WhatsApp is a different discussion. I think that's a different discussion. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, if they're going to go after Meta on WhatsApp, they could go after anybody. And so is it a little bit of overreach?
And the encryption of messages in WhatsApp, I think, is something that scares a lot of governments. So
yeah, but their encryption is as good as Signal. Signal's got way better encryption. So anyway, Ken.
Yeah. So in 2023, Epic sued in Google basically to open up the payment system and the App Store for Android. And of course, Google appealed that, and it reached the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit said, well, it was a jury verdict, and we're not going to overturn it. And we give you 7 days to fix this, right? From last Friday. But they gave them another 7 days. So within 2 weeks, Google has to open up their Android store and their payment system, which is, I hope they've been working on it, because that's quite a big thing to do. So this is pretty much an earthquake in the Android world. And I suspect that Apple is paying attention to this because they're probably the one that's next. They've been forced to open up in Europe and other places, but in the US, they still haven't reached that point. But I suspect this will happen. I don't know what this means for the world. The one thing about these big app stores is that they're able to curate, they have to curate a lot of these products that are on there to make sure they're not ripping off customers, cheating, stealing data, whatever. So even though it opens up to other products, people may still buy through the Android store just because of the fear they have of buying from somebody else may induce some virus or some problem that they don't want. So I suspect this will have somewhat limited impact on Google, but they've got to open it up. So let's move on to the next thing, which is, we've talked in these sessions about quantum computing. It's sort of, computing technology that will be added to our current computing architectures, not a replacement for it. And we'll be able to solve, all kinds of problems, from predicting the weather to cracking security issues and so forth, for protection of security. And but the big problem has been in the quantum world. There's a lot of problems with error detection. But IBM has come up with a product which they call Relay-BP, and it's produced a 10-fold improvement in error correction in the quantum world. So that's a pretty big deal. So the good news here is IBM's made this breakthrough, but we're also seeing good progress now toward making quantum computing a reality, and one that's scalable with these new error correction algorithms, etc. So I suspect others will be working on similar things to improve upon what IBM is, but I think this is big news. And then our last item here is that Intel is, of course, we've talked, week after week about what's happening over there, and having been the lead analyst for Gartner years ago on Intel, I saw this happening where they just weren't really absorbing what the market was doing. They're much more internally generating ideas and not really listening to the market well. So they've done a lot of acquisitions, they've not gone well, etc. So finally, the current president is trying to right size the company, and now they're going to spin off their networking component. It's called NEX, and there's another part of restructuring to make the company smaller and leaner. They've also delayed some plants they were going to build, etc. So they're laying off people. They're doing a lot to try to get this company right sized. They got a lot of work to do, but it's likely that this spinoff may be acquired by somebody like Cisco, maybe HP. It'll go somewhere, but it clearly wasn't a business that was getting enough attention from Intel itself. Okay, so I think that wraps it up for us. Jim, you want to finish it up here?
Yeah, so look, we covered a lot of ground. There's a lot going on. We're all waiting to see, when ChatGPT 5.0 is released into the wild, but that'll probably be something we'll talk about later this month because I think it's pending. So I think there'll be a crazy fall, but the reality is digital labor's here, and Aragon's covering it. So lots to talk about. We're talking to a lot of our clients about it. And if you're not talking to us because we're covering almost every aspect of AI, maybe you should say, maybe we need to engage with Aragon. So team, thank you very much for today. This has been our Aragon Live on August 6th, and we'll see you again next week.